Why do earthquakes happen? If rock is solid, what makes the ground suddenly shake, buildings sway, and entire coastlines shift in minutes? Earthquakes happen because Earth's outer shell is broken into moving plates. Along the cracks, faults, rocks bend as stress builds. When friction can't hold any longer, the rocks snap back and a fault slips suddenly. That rapid release, called elastic rebound, sends seismic waves through the ground, the shaking we feel. Imagine Earth's crust and upper mantle as a patchwork of stiff plates floating on hotter, softer rock below. These plates creep a few centimeters a year, about as fast as fingernails grow, driven by mantle flow and gravity. Where plates meet, they collide, slide past, or pull apart. None of those motions is perfectly smooth. Edges catch. Stress accumulates like tension in a bent ruler. For months, years, or centuries, the rocks store elastic energy. Deep underground, minerals deform, tiny cracks grow, and friction keeps things locked until the stored energy exceeds the strength of the fault. In that instant, the fault ruptures and the crust releases its pent-up strain. A fault is simply a fracture where the two sides can move. Stress pushes or pulls the blocks, friction resists. At small scales, the surfaces are jagged, like sandpaper. As stress rises, the fault undergoes stick-slip, long periods of sticking, then a sudden slip. The rupture starts at a point, the focus, and races along the fault at kilometers per second, like a zipper tearing open. Behind the front, the rock rebounds toward a less bent shape. That snap launches waves through the crust and mantle. Directly above the focus lies the epicenter, the surface point most often reported, but the rupture itself can be long and complex, so shaking patterns vary widely. Different plate boundaries nurture different quakes. At convergent margins, one plate dives beneath another. These subduction zones produce the planet's most powerful earthquakes and can lift or drop the seafloor enough to spawn tsunamis. At transform boundaries, plates grind past, think long, near vertical strike-slip faults. Quakes are typically shallow and frequent, capable of strong, localized shaking. At divergent boundaries, plates pull apart along mid-ocean ridges and rifts. Quakes there are usually smaller but common as new crust forms. Viewed globally, the Ring of Fire encircles the Pacific with subduction-driven activity, while famous transforms like the San Andreas trace wavy scars across continents, and the Mid-Atlantic Ridge quietly spreads the ocean floor. When the fault slips, it releases energy as different wave types. P waves are compressional fast, the first to arrive, squeezing and stretching rock in the direction they travel. S waves are shear waves, slower, side-to-side motion, often more damaging than P waves. Near the surface, energy converts into surface waves, love waves that shake the ground horizontally, and Rayleigh waves that roll the surface like ocean swells. Buildings and bridges respond to different frequencies, so the same earthquake can leave one structure almost untouched and another swaying dangerously, depending on their natural resonance and the local soil. Magnitude is a single measure of energy released at the source. Today we use moment magnitude for large events. Intensity describes how strongly the ground shakes in specific places, what people feel, and what buildings experience, and it depends on distance, direction, and local geology. Soft sediments can amplify motion. Hard bedrock can damp it. Two towns the same distance from a quake may report very different intensities because the ground beneath them behaves differently. The earthquake rarely acts alone. On coastlines above subduction zones, rapid seafloor motion can displace vast amounts of water, generating tsunamis that travel across entire oceans. In water-saturated soils, shaking can cause liquefaction. The ground briefly behaves like a fluid, tilting buildings and breaking pipelines. On slopes, shaking can trigger landslides and rockfalls. Inside cities, the combination of resonance, older vulnerable structures, and lifeline failures, power, water, transport, can turn seconds of shaking into prolonged crises. Not all earthquakes are purely tectonic. Filling large reservoirs, deep fluid injection, or some types of mining can alter pressures at depth and trigger small to moderate events on existing faults. Around volcanoes, moving magma cracks rock and shifts stresses, creating swarms of small quakes that can signal changes underground. We can't stop plates from moving, but we can reduce risk. Dense networks of seismometers locate ruptures fast. Some regions use early warning systems that detect the first P waves and send alerts seconds before heavier shaking arrives. Building codes, retrofits, emergency planning, and personal preparedness, securing heavy furniture, knowing how to drop, cover, and hold on turn knowledge into resilience. Now you know why the ground shakes. What should we explore next? How tsunamis form, or why some buildings survive the same quake while others fail? Tell me which mystery we should tackle in the next episode.